All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Tennis Channel Inside In on the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Mitch Michals on location here as the U.S. Open is continuing to thrill, surprise. All the superlatives you need can be found in this year's event in Flushing Meadows. Special Sunday show as we record a midweek, mid-tournament update of the U.S. Open here on Tennis Channel Inside In with friend of the program, one of the best guests that we've had on this show. She's done great work with basketball in Canada, and now she's covering tennis as well. Still very young in her journey in the media. But Crina Mustafa, welcome back to the show. You picked an interesting time to join the program, given where we are with the U.S. Open, but thanks for coming back on.
Thanks so much for having me back on. The US Open is always, I feel like, one of the more interesting slams of the year because it feels like anything can happen. You have players that are tired, results that have just like happened throughout the year. So yeah, it's always an exciting time around this time.
Every year we seem like this is the year that has this is the major that has variance. It seems like this is the one that's unpredictable. We've been looking maybe for unpredictability on the men's side, and Crina, we found it. There was two seismic upsets that have opened the draw. I guess before we get into them, Alcaraz and Djokovic losing respectively, are you surprised that this keeps seeming to happen at the U.S. Open, that the fourth major of the year seems to be the one with the most variance?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because you look at all the slams during the year. The Australian Open to me is also kind of similar to the US Open, where it can also be unpredictable because it's the beginning of the year and you've had players be on break. And then the US Open is kind of the other side of that, where, like I just said, it's like the end of the year. So many different things have happened. Also, this year, it's an Olympic year. So I feel like that's also been a factor into some of the results that we've had with all the switching of surfaces and time zone differences and all of that fun stuff. So I guess I'm not surprised that it's happened, although there are some players where I am surprised that they'll be out. Like, for example, a Novak going out this early. Like, some of those things I think are surprising, but overall, I guess we should expect that there's about to be some outliers here at the last slam of the year.
Yeah, all three Olympic medalists on the men's side were eliminated within 24 hours. But on the women's side, they're all still in it. And two of them are actually facing off today, or in this round. So we should have a lot to talk to there. Yeah, Novak Djokovic, we can start there. One of two huge upsets. They were co-favorites really going into that, at the end of those matches, Alcaraz and Djokovic, and they're both out. Djokovic loses in round 3 to Alexei Popyrin, who I think, Crina, we have to start giving his flowers, because when he won Canada, your home Masters event, people thought it was a Cinderella run and an improbable run, which it was. Now he beats the number one. Now he beats the all-time Grand Slam champion on the men's side and does it in convincing fashion. He had played him tough in majors before, Crina, but what do you think the edge was? What got Popyrin over the finish line this time in clearly the biggest win of his life?
Yeah, I like that you brought up his Canada win, because there's somebody else that won in Canada last year who ended up going on a pretty good trajectory, and that was Jannik Sinner. So I kind of look at that parallel. And in Montreal, you could have said, oh, all these players pulled out because of the Olympics, so maybe it was a bit of an easier field. But now he's kind of proving himself. He got over that. I don't know what the key is. And you know what the thing is? He hits really well, and I think he's got a good chance against Tiafoe here in the next round to maybe get a little bit deeper into this tournament. I actually thought Ben Shelton was going to come out of that one, so I think, and as much as I've been a Tiafoe truther, I just think Alexei is just like has this level of consistency right now, and he's able to kind of adapt against the players that he's played against before as well too, right? I think that experience kind of helped you, and you caught Novak on a good day for yourself, on a bad day for him, and now you find yourself here in the round of 16. So I just think he's peaking at the right moment in this tournament, in this slam, where we said that a lot of variables are kind of occurring and you don't kind of know who is going to come out of it. So I think you're peaking at the right time, and it's a good time to be Alexei Popyrin. If you saw his post after, he said, "Hi, U.S. Open round 2. My name is Alexei." So welcome to the second week of the slam.
It's a great time for Aussie tennis. We'll get to some other names that are still in it at the U.S. Open. But yeah, I love progression in the sport of tennis. He had been building to these moments. He had the big breakthrough, and I believe he can keep it going too. it was so interesting to see how both him and Botic in their big wins, they were nothing. There wasn't really nothing fluky about it. They were able to win. They were the better player for the duration of the match. Djokovic, you mentioned the Olympic hangover. There's age. There's all these questions. Crina, it could be as simple as a bad day at the office, though we're going to wonder at his age, at this point in his career, where he goes from here. Should also point out it's the first time in 20 plus years that the Big Three has no majors in a single calendar year. So that was pretty
in
crazy
my lifetime,
too. But
I'm an O2 baby. It's literally
in your
my
lifetime. Well, thanks for making me and everybody else out there listening feel a little old with that. But no, it's the first year he hasn't won a slam in a while. Do you chalk this up to a bad day at the office, an Olympic hangover, or a combination of a couple of things?
To be honest, I think it's been his preparation throughout the years. We saw as he gets later in his career, he starts to prioritize the bigger tournaments and the slams, and that's worked for him the last few years. But we're starting to see with all these other players coming up, with Carlos being kind of the one to battle him the last couple of seasons, and now he's losing to other players that are not Carlos in the third round of a slam. And so I think it's the preparation. I wonder if, because I don't really see Novak, bowing out anytime soon. And then we saw him play a couple of extra tournaments here and there when he saw that he kind of struggled to start out the year this year. So I wonder if maybe he approaches this in the next season. Maybe he plays some more tournaments to end this year, but maybe he approaches next season by playing at some more of these smaller lead-up tournaments before the actual slam, because you are getting older and you are still playing at a high level, literally just won gold at the Olympics. So there's no drop in his level, but I think it comes down to the preparation, and maybe he's just not used to having to maybe have to play more tournaments leading up to these bigger ones.
Yeah, it was a weird year, right? He had the injury, he had the Olympics that he built his whole season around, his whole last 4 years around.
The injury that he came back the injury that he came back in 2 seconds, it felt with just a brace on his knee, a little wrap thing. I've never seen anyone. He's a superhuman. It's crazy.
It was crazy. I do think, and I agree with you, it was a remarkable turnaround, but not that anyone maybe would have beat Alcaraz in the Wimbledon final. Not being full health was almost like the death blow. He probably wouldn't have won anyway that day, but not being full health was huge. I do think that it's fair at any point in an athlete's career when they get to 37, 38 years old to question age, even these all-time greats like Djokovic. So I think hitting the reset button, going into next year, seeing where his ranking is because of the points he's going to lose, it's going to be interesting, but we're obviously not writing him off yet. It's just a long tennis season, as we saw in the other upset, Crina. Maybe even more shocking, Carlos Alcaraz going out to Botic and Zandschulp. Botic hadn't won back-to-back tour matches all season, and he just goes out in straight sets. The guy who's won 2 or 3 majors this year. That was stunning, and props to Botic first. I want to give props to the winners first and foremost, because Botic plays the match of his life and stays calm under pressure as only he can.
Yeah, I think he has it in him. I think that's the thing. He's one of those players that you'll always see around. Like you said, the consistency is not really there, but to pull off an upset like this, and I literally said after he won, I was like, he's going to lose in the next round. It's just one of those things where you pull off the greatest night of your life, and then you kind of just go back to you regress to the means on that. But props to him, really. Truly a great night to just play absolutely perfect tennis. And Carlos is young. I know there's a lot of narratives, with him smashing his racket a few weeks ago and all that. He's still really young. There's a lot on his shoulders. It just comes with consistency, and I wouldn't chalk this up other than to Botic just having the match of his life and playing at a really extremely high level. Yeah, that's what I chalk it up to. But it is still a surprise to me still that both Carlos and Novak are out this early.
Yeah.
However, I think it makes the rest of the tournament super, super exciting.
Yeah, and just a note on that before we go on, and we'll get there, is that they're on different sides of the draw, so that's kind of good. The one thing that wouldn't have been good is if it's so top heavy, so you're just looking at one side. So I think it's nice that it's kind of spread out. The other side of that, Crina, is he's young. He had a great year. The Olympic hangover is real. That loss to Djokovic was brutal. He still had a 2 major year. Still is very, very good. And if you look historically, just in recent history, it took Djokovic, Federer, even Nadal, a couple more years into their early to mid-20s before they were the guys that just didn't lose in big matches. So he's still ahead of schedule. He still has a lot of ways to go. It was just a brutal day at the office. And we've talked about this before, me and you, even with the men's and women's tennis, how the depth and consistency is so good that if you're off and just thrown off one day, it doesn't really matter if you're even playing a seeded player, anyone can get you.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think people realize just how hard it is, unless you're actually in it, to just have to be on your top level all the time and be winning. And yes, that is what separates the great players from the good players and the rest of the players, but it really is hard. And it's also tough when your bad day at the office is in the third round of the last slam of the year, because there's a lot more attention and a lot more eyes on it. But no, I totally agree with you.
So who do you think this opens it up for on the men's side? And the answer is probably a lot of players. So if there is a couple or one or two in the top of your tongue, who do you think them losing Djokovic and Alcaraz, it opens it up for?
Listen, I think we know we're looking for that Sinner Medvedev quarterfinal. I think whoever comes out of that one should make that run to the final, and is probably going to be the one to go for the title. I think Casper Ruud has to make the semifinals. To me, like,
Oof.
I just need him to. Same goes for Rublev. That's what I would like to see based on who's left in the draw.
Yeah. I'm laughing a little bit because, we have a big American audience, and, Casper Ruud Fritz is coming up next, which I agree with you in a lot of ways. I mean, this is just so fun now because there's so many opportunities that players might not have had. Sinner Medvedev was always the collision course, but now you're right. Like, the winner of that match is in pole position to not just get to the semis, but final and titles right there. We know Sinner has been, elite all year. Handling the outside noise, Crina, has been very impressive, and I expect him to keep it going. But that match with Tommy Paul coming up next will be the first time he probably faces I don't say hostile crowd, but a road crowd. He will not be the fan favorite, and how he handles that will tell me a lot about how this run will go or end going forward.
He's actually been handling everything quite well. Even just watching the way that he answers questions, in the press, very level-headed, very rational. I think the whole situation has been weird too, especially because we found out now, but it's something that he's been kind of dealing with for months now. And so I think he said originally, like, he felt some kind of relief when the news came out, but I think that was, like, very temporary, because I think the backlash probably stressed him out even more, and he had to deal with that. But I think this is a good test. You're right. It is a good test against a hostile crowd. We'll see if there's any Italians in the crowd, because I'd say they're pretty energetic there too. They're pretty loud, I would say. And there's a lot of Italians doing well lately, including on the women's side, which I know we'll talk about too.
Oh, yeah. Tommy Paul is a great matchup for Sinner. It's going to be so fun to see how that match goes. Medvedev, I just wanted to mention him before we keep going, because if that is the quarterfinal and if they do face off, Medvedev has bounced back. He didn't win a single match in Canada or Cincinnati, but yet he comes back to New York City. Love him or hate him, and I do think more people are loving him now. It's been 5 years since that fateful night, but I think Medvedev on hard courts, given the opportunity and given the draw with two contenders out, this could be the time for him to level up and find his way back to the major title circle.
I honestly think that match, if they meet in the quarterfinals, I honestly think it goes 5 sets. And I hope it does, because I just want the ultimate chaos to see who comes out of that one. I won't even make a prediction. I'll just say it goes 5 sets.
I'll make a prediction for you, because if it goes 5 sets, I favor Medvedev in that match. Like that. Given the physical capabilities of Medvedev. And I wouldn't argue
too much against you. Yeah.
Well, other contenders to look at. There's other players. Obviously, you mentioned that Fritz and Ruud match. That's huge. Zverev is licking his chops on the other side of the draw with Djokovic out. So that section of the draw, there's opportunities galore. 4 players. All 3 of those men I mentioned. Ruud has made a couple major finals. Zverev has made a couple major finals. They don't have a trophy. Taylor Fritz has been the most consistent American player. Again, it's like the theme of the show right now in the U.S. Open. The time is now. The opening might not be there for years even. This is the chance for these men to seize it.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think Casper Ruud's probably feeling it the most, being that guy that's been there so close so many times. I mean, on the other side too, if I want to give some American love, let's shout out Brandon Nakashima. He's had a sneaky good tournament. I wouldn't mind seeing him kind of challenge Zverev and maybe pulling off an American upset. That's kind of who I'm looking at too.
He's leveling up. He was predicted to kind of get near this range. He had injuries. He had some setbacks. It's great to see 4 American men in the round of 16 for the second straight year. It was Tiafoe, not Shelton. That was an exceptional match. And, I love to see Big Foe level that rivalry, get that win, get some revenge from last year. It's a budding rivalry. He fought valiantly to win that match. And I think the biggest adjustments that he's made with Coach David Witt and the team is his problem solving and his adjustments. But now is the next test, right? And I agree with the points you made. He's got Popper next. How will both of these guys handle coming off of big wins? This is a spot where we've seen players lose in the next round. So it's kind of odd. And it's kind of cool that both of these players are in the same spot. How do you follow up a big win and keep it going?
Yeah, they're definitely in similar spots, and this is definitely a dangerous trap match for both of them. I think for Frances Tiafoe, what I'm looking at is how he can execute and close out some of these games. You cannot let Popperin in. Like, that's just is not going to be an option. He is going to close out that match. And so that's why I am a little bit nervous for him. But I do like the fact that he has changed up, working with David Witt. I saw him in the crowd the other day and I was like, oh, I literally even forgot that coaching change even happened. So I'm glad he has him in his box. I think getting that win against Shelton is huge because Alexei Popyrin is like riding this momentum wave of tennis right now, and like he is on a high. But when you come out of a match like one that you get out against someone like Ben Shelton, who, like you said, you have that rivalry, it's a grind to get out of it. That to me is a ton of motivation as well too. So it is a dangerous match for both of them. But at the end, it's going to really come down to execution. Don't make unforced errors. Just you have to be like on your top game because this one is actually really, really exciting. Even though there were some upsets, this is a really exciting matchup.
It is. And if you want to give Francis an edge in a certain regard, it's that he's been here before. He's had to deal with this. He's had the losses after big wins. So he's got a little more experience in this regard, but it's razor thin. One of the men's matches
the
just
US
starting.
Open crowd too.
Oh, he loves it. He loves it. One of the men's matches taking place right now, you mentioned him, Andrei Rublev, Grigor Dimitrov. That's a banger of a 4th round match, an opportunity there. Rublev, who had battled from 2 sets down. Yeah, the bros. Rublev battled from 2 sets down earlier in the tournament, so he's, surviving what he's doing. And Grigor, 33, just seems like a new man and seems way more consistent than he did in his younger days.
Yeah, I think for this one, the key is going to be Rublev kind of keeping and maintaining a level head throughout the match. It's not easy to play somebody that you're really good friends with. It's not easy to play someone who's playing some of the best tennis of their career, especially, like you said, new man at 33 years old. So I think as long as Rublev maintains that level head, I think he's got a good chance. This one's also going to be a nail biter. I'm interested to see if it ends in like 4 sets or if this also goes to 5. But yeah, I think that's the main thing here.
Well, final thoughts on the men's side before we talk a little bit about the women. The land of opportunity, as I call it. You have Thompson Demonauer. You have Thomas Mahac, who our listeners know for wearing the short shorts and dating Siniakova and winning the gold medal there. Then you also have him playing against Jack Draper. One of those 4 men is going to be a U.S. Open semifinalist. Any thoughts on that section?
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's wild, right? And like these are the moments that kind of shape whether or not players go out and continue to break out. Like Ben Shelton being a player that broke out at the US Open and now has a lot of eyes on him. So looking at any of these players, we talked about the Olympic hangover, but Tommy's riding the Olympic hangover quite well. So that's what I'm interested. I'm interested also to see Jack Draper. I don't know if I would have expected him to have made it this far into the draw. And then I'm also really sad because, all the Canadians were out pretty early, except for Gabriel Diallo. Shout out to him for making it a tough test against Tommy Paul as well, too. Could have faced Sinner next, but it's okay. He was the one Canadian I could be proud of on the singles side.
Yeah, not the best time for Canadian tennis, but I'm glad you could admit that. We'll see where we go going forward. The American men have a chance, but hey, it's going to be exciting. All right, more with Crina Mustafa here on Tennis Channel Inside In, talking 2024 U.S. Open. Talking about the women's side now. Equally as exciting, equally as impressive. A lot of different ways to start. The big 3 contenders are still alive. They've all been tested in their own right. And I guess we could start in any direction. And I'll give it to you as our guest here on the show. Of Coco, Iga, Sabalenka, who do you want to talk about first, and who is somebody you've noticed or is maybe impressing you first?
Coco first. Let's go with defending champ because I think she's played quite well so far. I think it's hard, and this has been something that she's talked about herself about, the victory lap and how much pressure there is to play as defending champion, and how like this person on TikTok made her see it differently, and that like if you won, you can do it. You've done it before, and you can do it again. And I think Coco will say that she's playing with like ease and like not a lot of pressure. But I think that there's a little bit of fire being defending champion. You can see it in the way that she plays. You can see it in the way that she's been hitting. She's playing with something extra right now, and I think that's totally fine, totally normal. I love it. And she's going to need that against Emma Navarro because they've been a hard matchup this year. They did play in the round of 16 at Wimbledon this year. Coco lost in straight sets. So this is going to be her hardest test so far. But she is playing with an extra oomph. So I think like I'm seeing something different than maybe an earlier version of Coco this year. And so I'm hoping that she kind of uses that to kind of fuel the fire even more and make it further. But I am all eyes on Coco right now because this is going to be a pivotal match for her.
She showed tremendous fight. She showed all the ingredients why she is who she is, and that's fiddling in a match, battling back. And you also saw the crowd that's been waiting for her to play better to get behind her. That was kind of the moment where, okay, we can ride the wave and make the adjustments. But yeah, 100% agreement. The competition is rising dramatically when you face Emma Navarro, who has been, I mean, honestly, the fastest rising player in the last 12 months on the WTA, given where she was over a year ago. She beat her at Wimbledon. She has problems, and she has problems for Coco's game, and she's very smart tactically. So whatever happens in this match is going to tell us a lot, I would say, about the tournament going forward. It's good to see Coco back in the mix. As you could also say Crina for IgaSwiatek, who another player hadn't really come in feeling the best, having the best, hard court record outside of the Indian Wells run. She's won this tournament before. The first round was shaky, and then after that, it was pretty much all riding the wave. The Pavlyuchenkova match was, again, Crina, the first time we probably saw, okay, there she is. There's the girl that won the U.S. Open, that's still equally dominant on hard courts and plays downhill maybe better than anyone in women's or men's tennis right now.
Yeah, she got hit on that body shot from Pavlyuchenkova, and now it's over for everybody. She's got that fire in her eyes too. But I'm excited because we're gonna get a potential Iga versus Pegula quarterfinals if they both come out of their match. Both players who are, like you said, playing pretty well. Jessica Pegula, I got to watch her win in Toronto this year as well. So yeah, I'm excited. I think Iga has got something to prove. I think the field has a lot of depth. Sabalenka, who we're going to talk about as well, has kind of been playing really easily, kind of cruising. She had her biggest test just most recently against Alexandrova, but other than that, she's looked pretty good too. So to me, the women's field is really wide open right now.
I've been saying to whoever will listen that this could be Pegula's time. This is a moment. She's healthy. She's back. She's, gotten some new coaching. I think this is an opportunity. The draw is not great getting Iga again in the quarterfinal, but if she wins, it's like Medvedev Sinner, right? If Pegula wins that match, watch for her to keep it going and not just stop at the semis. But she has not gotten past that round. So how she handles herself will be huge. That said, and I wanted to ask you too, as a Canadian, and you mentioned something, I was thinking of Pegula winning Canada. Is that custom that every time you win the tournament, you just get a picture with the Mounties?
I mean, I don't know. I guess so. I think people are also trying to claim Pegula as Canadian since her grandparents are from Buffalo, and she kind of mentioned that. I'm like, I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch, but she's so nice, so she might as well be a Canadian. I don't know. I guess it is customary. I haven't seen that all that often, but who knows? That's what everybody associates us with. They're like, yeah, your police ride on horses, and I'm like, well. Sure, kinda, but not really.
It was a great photo, and I can't wait to see. Diana Schneider's a tough matchup. That's not going to be easy, as is Samsonova versus Iga, but we get that matchup. It's a popcorn matchup. I agree with you when you said Sabalenka's been playing bravely, Crina, because she loses a set against Alexandrova, which is going to happen. How she responded after that. Also, it was a night of upsets, and she kind of, had to play late, had to deal with a lot. Point being is you're going to face adversity along the way in these major runs. You're not going to play 7 perfect matches. I was impressed by how she got the job done, adjusted, and just quite frankly got out of there with a win and moved on.
She's just fearless. Like, she plays like she's got nothing to lose. And I think that's really scary if you're another player in this draw, as the rounds kind of go on, because you face a player like that, it's really, really hard to play your own game. So, yeah, I think Sabalenka is still very much should be that top favorite here among the 3.
I still think there's opportunities for some draw records, for some players to make moves. One of them's playing right now and is actually about to win. But Paula Badosa back in the mix. Is a fighter, is very, very brave as well out there. The match against Ruse where she, blew it in a lot of ways and then battled back and won it in the match tiebreaker. Crina, she's fit and she's back on court playing fearless tennis. And when she's playing that power game, in any match, she can take out anyone. So I think her being back to the mix is a nice little wrinkle of this, US Open subplot. Let's just not all count the favorites to win everything. Badosa might have something to say about that.
Absolutely. This is the most consistency she's gotten in a while, has obviously struggled with injuries and all of that. And I do want to shout out Gabriela Rusev because I am also Romanian, and that was a little bit of a heartbreaker for me. She pushed her to the last point. But no, this is huge for Badosa to get these matches under her belt, almost in the quarterfinals again, like you said, is almost done her match right now. But she's also hard to play against. Like, it's really nice seeing these players who were the top players and have struggled with injuries kind of be back in the mix again, because it is adding to the depth of the field. So she's absolutely a player that can make some noise here. And I'm really excited for her.
You mentioned players struggling from injuries back in the mix. You mean like Karolina Muchova, who's just back picking up where she left off?
We just set it up and you knocked it down there.
What a great performance, though. Yeah, and not just the performance, Crina, but like, sorry to cut you off, but like how she plays. And everyone can play a different way, but her style really does captivate the audiences. Like, you see it and you're like, that's cool. That's exciting tennis. It's good for the game that she's back and she's playing well.
Right? Like, she plays like such a pure style of tennis. Like, and I know I got compared to the men's side and there was a little bit of controversy there, but no, like, she plays like herself. She plays like that is what tennis should look like. And a lot of players would like to model their games after her. I'm really excited for this matchup against Jasmine Paolini, because talk about another player who should absolutely be in the mix. I mean, like, look at this. We go through every player and we're like, here's another one who can absolutely make a run, a deep run, and a shot at the title as well. She's been so fun this year and is honestly like such a charismatic person. I watch all of her post-match interviews, and I don't always do that with every player, but with Jasmine Paolini, you just have to, because not only is she just like a killer on the court, she's a killer in the post-match interviews. And I'm really excited because it's going to be an interesting matchup style. She said, I think Jasmine Paolini said, like, short people can play tennis too, or something like along those lines, which makes her just so fun to watch. And she honestly reminds me a little bit of Simona Halep, just like the way that they talk, like both really like shorter players. I've also got that Romanian bias too, but like still, I think they're very similar. I see similarities there. And so she just makes it very easy to root for her.
I'm glad you called out the Romanian bias. That's very professional of you. That said, you're 100% right about Paolini. She's, I got the chance to talk to her. She's as nice as anyone. It's not a gimmick. And I think it's great to see hard work paying off. And the fact that she's won more major matches than any WTA player this year is exceptional. At a certain point, we got to stop being surprised by this and just start appreciating greatness. What a fun match that is. That's as good as any from a skill, from a stylistic part. Should be fun. I did want to also mention too.
I'm so excited.
So many slices. Yeah. And I'm also excited. I want to just get your thoughts, Crina, on, Naomi Osaka. It ends at round 2. It was a brutal draw. Beats Ostapenko, loses the Muchova, had chances in the second set. But at the very least, something to build on. I know it's not probably what she wants to hear, or fans and people that expect greatness. Greatness is still in there, but the sport is deep. The sport is brutal, and it's going to take time. There were some small steps, still ways to go, but ultimately not that bad of a showing given the circumstances.
Absolutely. I think you look at her draw, and that absolutely was not in her favor. Ostapenko first round, and then Muchova next. Like, I think getting that first win was absolutely huge for her. And even the fact that, like, a year ago at this time, she couldn't even walk. Like, she was injured. She's also coming from having a baby as well. And so I think that this is actually, like, the most positive momentum that we've seen from Naomi this year. And I think it's going to build into next season. And I think next season she's going to take that next step to kind of getting back to being who she is. And that just makes me really excited for her. And she posted on social media, she was like, I had this whole negative caption typed out, but no, like, I'm really proud of myself. And she should be. I think this was a really good showing for her. And just being back in New York again, I'm sure the fans really love that too.
The last thing to look at, couple matches, couple players left still alive. Gold medal rematch, Zhang Shenwen taking on Donna Vekic. Like what Vekic has done. Also, word of the wise in the media, compliment her hair so you don't get yelled at in the press conference. She wants that. But no, Pam Shriver, her colleagues, done great work with Donna. With Shinwen, Crina, though, is like a new, confident woman ever since winning the gold medal. And she's a fighter out there. So another player to keep an eye on, because when Shinwen gets in big matches, it seems like she wins them more than she loses.
She is finally in the form that we kind of saw from her, where she started to break out on the scene a couple of seasons ago. And I think getting that gold medal was absolutely huge for her. I mean, even if you think back to the last Olympics when Belinda Bencic won gold as well, like, it just does something for these players. And I think that now we're seeing Zhang Qinwen kind of become the player that she's meant to be. I think watching her over the last couple of years, she's always been super raw, like, still very, very talented, but now she's kind of starting to zero in on the more technical parts of her game, and that's showing through in her results. And that's what makes me really, really excited about her, because I think she's going to be a consistent staple in the field now. And this is only just, like, proving even more. And I'm so excited to watch this gold medal rematch, because these are the storylines that we're absolutely looking for.
We are very much looking forward to them. I can't wait to see. There's always a U.S. Open that involves controversy. So on the way out, I wanted to bring up two instances. One being VAR failure again. I mean, it seemed like last night in head-ed Maya Kalinskaya, which headed Maya one going away. We had instant replay. Everything's going to be great. And then all of a sudden, Crina, on the replay, Kalinskaya doesn't get the point on the double bounce as well. So I don't know if there's a perfect system. Unfortunate set of circumstances, but where would we be without controversy in this great sport of tennis?
So true. So true. I think here's the thing, right? Because we introduced all this technology with Hawkeye, with the video review, to be like, the computers are right. We can't argue with the computers. We're trying to take away human error as much as possible. But what happens when that backfires on you, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, who is actually right here? Because now you're losing credibility. The players are getting more and more frustrated. Your fans will get frustrated. People watching will get frustrated when things aren't consistent, especially when umpires will make certain decisions as well and throw themselves into the mix. And all of a sudden it's like you've lost the consistency that you need in order to make these rulings. And so I understand the frustration. I don't know what the right answer is. I'm not on the Hawkeye or virtual side of tennis, and so maybe they have a better answer than me. I know I have a few connects there, so maybe I'll ask them what the answer is. But it is something that I think they need to figure out. As much as we talk about the reset for players, I think we need a reset on some of this virtual technology stuff, because I think it was working at the beginning, but now we're starting to see some kinks, and it affects games. It affects points. It affects, like, it has like a real big impact for players and matches and all of that. So yeah, that is something that needs to be as consistent as players need to be successful.
I like progress. I like that we're making waves, but I also understand that there is no such thing as perfection, and I'd like to have some backup plans. And I'd like to also not put all our eggs in one basket, just speaking, maybe metaphorically, but also in the literal sense of relying so much on one thing. And then, like you said, it fails. Then what do we do now? So crazy there. The last thing I want to say, and I don't want to rail too hard on it, and I do appreciate the fact that she apologized, but it wasn't a good look for Putintseva with the ball kid last night. I just want to encourage everyone to kind of be kind. It's okay to, apologize after the fact. Obviously, we encourage you to do that, but it wasn't a great look for her in that match last night. So that's all, Crina, I was going to say there, is that try to treat people with kindness, players and ball kids alike.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who are new fans to tennis, they'll be like, "Oh my God, these players like melt down and they throw their rackets and they treat like the ball kids like this," and it's like it's low-key embarrassing sometimes because it's like, yes, it's like tennis is such an emotional sport. I mean, I play casually and I get upset when I miss, and I'm not a professional tennis player and I'm not playing in front of anybody, and so like there are all these factors and it is hard, but at the same time, it's like, okay, let's go back to planet Earth a little bit. Let's touch grass. Let's regulate our emotions a little bit, because moments like that happen and it doesn't look good. And I'm glad she apologized, because not all players do that. So it was nice to see that. But just a really tough situation. Shout out to that ball girl. She was just like, "Yep, I'm gonna keep throwing balls at you because that's my job. So you can choose to receive them or not." But that's kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah, she was locked in. Shout out to her for sure. Well, Crina Mustafa, it's been a blast talking US Open with you. So much to still be decided. Any final thoughts, things to look for? Just, I don't want to say predictions, but maybe things you're expecting to see as we get to week 2 of the US Open?
I actually want to show you guys, because I have a Grey Goose US Open glass from 2022, because my friend went to the US Open and he got a bunch for me. So shout out to Dano, my friend Dano. I love these glasses so much. I think it's outrageous that they cost like what, $23 US. But hey, people are going to pay for them. So I haven't had one yet, but hopefully I can try one day. Other than that, I think also we said a goodbye to some players at this tournament too. Danielle Collins comes to mind, Shelby Rogers. So a couple of Americans there that we said goodbye to. So I just want to say congratulations to them on their careers. I also thought Danielle Collins might have made it a little bit further in the draw, but props to her for the year that she's had as well too, because it was really, really awesome to watch.
Certainly was. Again, that's a great visual aid, the $22 cup that that I agree. Maybe not my first choice when I'm walking onto the grounds, but hey, they look great and they are bringing in a lot of revenue. So Crina Mustafa, it's been a blast. Always fun to talk tennis with you. Follow her on social media. Her Twitter account, Crina has tremendous content in the world of tennis, in the world of women's basketball. And again, you said you're an 0-2 baby, so a lot of time left and a lot of just career moves coming up. So thanks again for making us feel old. And thanks again for coming on Tennis Channel Inside Out.
Thanks so much, Mitch. I'll try to stay young as long as I can, because now the tennis players coming up are starting to be younger than me. So we're getting up there.
Yeah, just wait till they're all younger than you. But no, thanks, Crina. Always a blast.
Thanks so much.